Hello. So, I probably know what you're thinking of. You're probably thinking, is he going to review Sherlock, the pilot? If you're thinking that, yes, I am. So, Sherlock was created by Stephen Moffat and Mark Gatiss. Uh, Stephen Moffat is best known for his work on Doctor Who, and so is Mark Gatiss. So, as all of you know, the very first episode of Sherlock was A Study in Pink. But before there was Study in Pink, there was a pilot. A 60-minute pilot to begin what would become Sherlock. So this is where I begin my Sherlock Holmes reviews. I didn't want to start off with Study in Pink. I wanted to begin at its very beginnings with the pilot, which was also known as A Study in Pink, but I will refer to it as the pilot. So as we begin the pilot, Dr. John Watson is going to a therapist. He just came back from war and is now has a leg injury and is trying to start a blog, but nothing ever happens to him. So one day he is walking throughout the street and see an old friend of his, Mike. So he tells Mike that he needs a roommate, and Mike says this is the second time he was asked this question. So before I go into Sherlock, I want to say the pilot and the Study in Pink are the same episodes, but are completely different. Like there are some elements that are the same, some that aren't. Like the 60-minute pilot had a lot of things that were cut out of Study in Pink. Like some of the scenes were shot in different locations, but I will go over some of the differences in the Study in Pink review. So we go to a morgue where Sherlock is trying to find an alibi for a friend of his. Well, I say friend. Not really a friend, I say. But he's trying to prove this man's innocent by whipping a corpse, trying to find out that if the bruises form the exact way. And if anyone knows the original Sherlock Holmes books, this Sherlock has done this in the books before. He whips the corpse, seeing what kind of bruises they form. So I like they are keeping with the classics idea of how Sherlock works, but I'm also like it how they incorporate modern era elements to Sherlock. Like, remember, this was the pilot. They didn't think that this will work or not. They were just writing what they know. Like the two head writers of the show were big fans of Sherlock Holmes. Like I like Sherlock Holmes too. I read the books. I have the movies. I watch Sherlock. Elementary is okay. Well, it's okay. Not my favorite out of the Sherlock genre, but it's an interesting twist. But let's get back to Sherlock. So Sherlock meets Dr. John Watson. Let's just call him John because I don't have time to call him Dr. John Watson. So and he tells John that he knows a lot about him, about his sister who is a drunk, how he came back from war, how he was in the military, and it's all interesting ways. Like we find out how he knows this later on in the episodes, but he deduced all of that, how his sister was a drug by his phone, how he was in the military, a haircut, and how he deduced that John went to war because of the tan right above the wrist. Like there was no tan below the wrist, none of the arm, just the hands, and that was a unique way to do this. Like they're keeping with elements of the show. I mean the books, like how John came back from war, met Sherlock, and deduced most of his life. So Sherlock tells John to meet him at 222 Baker Street. And Baker Street is a bit different from the main Sherlock series. Like, remember, this was the pilot. They were still figuring on what works, what didn't. Like, they were still trying to find the right kind of set. And it's a bit different from the main set they use throughout the series. Like, like some of the objects are different. Like there's now a skull. The kitchen is completely different chairs. But remember, it's a okay feeling, okay look, but not the kind we're used to. So John meets Sherlock at Baker Street, and they look at the place. And John's not sure if he wants to, share an apartment or flat for the UK viewers of mine. That he's not sure if he should share a flat or apartment with Sherlock because he's a bit, a bit nuts. That's what the look from John when he is looking at Sherlock is a bit like, okay, you're a bit crazy. Yeah. So then Lestrade shows up and tells Sherlock that there's a case. During these events, so there has been 5 murders of people taking poison. Like many people think it's suicide, but but really, they're murders. So Sherlock goes to the murder while John asks Miss Hudson, the landlord, who isn't their maid, to make some tea. Then Sherlock comes back and tells him that he wants to see what John can do, like if he's worthy of his time. But he doesn't tell John this. Like he doesn't. Okay, he doesn't say okay. So I want to see if you're clever enough to hang out with me to help me on these cases, or that you're just an idiot like all these other stupid people I have to work with. If I heard that, I would probably punch him. So John goes down to the crime scene, but on the way we find out how Sherlock knew about all of those things about John Watson. Like the phone, there were scratches. They weren't from like he wouldn't pay for this phone if he was looking for a flatmate or apartment roommate or whatever. Like this phone was expensive, so it was probably a gift. Then there's the scratches, which means like it could have been from a drunk who weren't careful from it, and it didn't even have his name on it. It had his sister's name and her wife's name on it. Like it was a gift from her wife, which deduced that this was a gift from the brother who was recently in trouble with her marriage, that gave it to John because she didn't want to be reminded of the marriage, and how that's basically the most important things. Like I just explained all the other details at the beginning, but that was the most important thing. Like we learned that Sherlock could deduce like the little things that we would usually overlook. So then we head to the crime scene where there's a woman in pink dead, like Sherlock deduces that this person was from our town because of the umbrella that she had on her, but it wasn't used, so it was probably too windy for it, and that she was probably out of town heading to London to just stay overnight, and that she wasn't having a good marriage, so she had a affair with a few other people by just looking at the ring, which he said that the ring was not clean. It was like dirty. While all of her other like earrings were clean and jewelry were clean as well. So and he also looked at the weather, which was exactly what he described, very windy. And he also deduced that there was a suitcase, but there wasn't a suitcase, which meant the killer made a fatal mistake, that the killer led the woman into the house without even taking out the bag of hers. And when he noticed that she left the bag in the taxi, he had to get rid of it. So after that, Sherlock goes through a bunch of alleyways trying to find out where the killer ditched the suitcase while John heads back to his small apartment. That's very small. And he gets a text from Sherlock and tells him that he has to come over to Baker Street because it could be dangerous. So John Watson makes the trip over to Baker Street, and we learn a bit of his character, that he's a bit ancient, like a bit impatient. Like we learn that he's drawn to danger by that text message because his time in the military made him drawn to the war, to violence, to violent people like psychopaths. So we get to Baker Street and we find out the reason why Sherlock text John was to just use his phone because he thinks his phone would be recognized by the phone number. So Sherlock finds the suitcase, tells John that there's one thing that is missing from the suitcase, and that is a mobile, because who doesn't have a mobile these days? Like teenagers, kids, old people, adults. Like we all use phones nowadays. Like it wouldn't make sense if someone like probably in the early 30s to late 30s wouldn't go around with a phone, especially if they're going out of town. Like that makes perfectly sense. So then we head to a restaurant after Sherlock phones the phone because there's actually, how did he know about the phone number? Like I'm pretty sure the phone, like the person wouldn't have the phone number in the suitcase. Like who keeps their own phone number in the suitcase? But anyways, a minor detail. So then we head to a restaurant. The same restaurant that we saw in A Study in Pink. But let's stay focused on the pilot. So this is the scene where John is getting to know Sherlock about why he does this. Like he's drawn to the psychopaths because he thinks everyone else is just stupid, and they just can't see what's in front of them. And the way Sherlock describes how the killer gets these people to these locations without even forcing them, it's because it blends into the background. He's someone we don't even think, who drives a car we only think that we know was safe in, and that is a taxi, which is a unique idea of Stephen Moffat. He uses ordinary objects that we think that are safe to be around. like he does this with Doctor Who, like in his very first episodes, and throughout his sixth season, he also uses this idea. But right now, he is using this idea for Sherlock, how he makes the taxi driver the villain of this episode. In City and Pink, we learn a bit more about his story and his motives. But in this, we just find out he's just doing it for kicks, for trying to live full of life, trying to breathe new life into him. So after Sherlock pretends to be drunk and goes over to the cabbie driver to make sure that he is the killer, he phones the phone, and the driver picks it up, and Sherlock knows it for sure that he is the killer. So, but the taxi driver drugs him by stabbing him with some kind of drug that knocks him out for 10 minutes, and he drives over to his place after Sherlock gave him his address. So during this time, John realizes something is wrong and heads after the taxi. But let's not forget about his leg injury. Truth is, there is no leg injury. It's all in his head. So then we arrive at Baker Street, where the killer tells Sherlock why he does this. It's because he has a brain hemorrhage. That means he doesn't know when he's going to die. Any breath he takes could be his last. So we find out that he's killing just to feel alive. And Sherlock realizes he's a genius. He's one of the clever people, just like himself. And the taxi driver agrees with everything Sherlock has been saying throughout this episode, that people cannot see what's right in front of them, that people have to think bigger, not smaller, that everyone that is stupid, that they can't see what's important. And that's a unique idea, how they make these two characters so alike, but in different ways, like how one kills for fun while other finds who the killer is for fun. And that's a unique idea, trying to make the villain and the hero the same. And so the taxi drivers gives him two pairs. It's like a game of chess, but with one move. The taxi driver knows which pair is which, but he would take whichever pair that is left over that the person who takes the first pair leaves. Like, he gives them the opportunity to choose. Like, it's a game of chance. And it's a unique idea. Like, you have a 50-50 chance of living, and that's a great idea, I think. So the taxi driver tells Sherlock that he won't just walk away because he has to be right, that this is who he is, that he needs to be clever than everyone else. So then, so right before Sherlock's about to take the pair, the taxi driver is shot and killed by a mysterious I can't talk today, I'm sorry. Armsman. So the police arrive, and he tells Lestrade that the shooter must be trained, that he's used to killing, that he must have been in the military to have that great anger, and then realizes it's John, and tells Lestrade, it's nothing, just pretend I never said anything. I'm just wrong, okay? So he goes over to Watson and tells him that he knows it was him, and that he thinks this could be a great friendship. Well, not in that exact words, but we get the feeling that's what he means. So they walk off to get some Chinese food, and Esther tells one of the policewoman, that they need to put put John Watson and Sherlock on the contact list. So overall, I thought this was a okay pilot, a great beginning for what's to come, and it only gets better from here. Well, there was one episode that I didn't like that much throughout the series, but it was a unique idea, 60 minutes that the BBC really enjoyed, so they extended it to 90 minutes to create A Study in Pink. And from the way I can compare both episodes, I'm going to compare them both when I do the Study in Pink review. But anyways, I really enjoyed it. I give it 7 out of 10. It could have been better, which it will get. But the taxi driver in this episode didn't have real motive. We didn't really learn why. Like, what does he get out of here instead of just feeling alive? Like, I like how Study in Pink does it better, but I will go into that in great detail when I review Study in Pink. Well, I'm the Dynamic Dover. I will be coming back better and newer with more Sherlock reviews. Till next time.